Last Pint Productions presents the New Way podcast. The New Way contains adult content, and new episodes are released most Wednesdays. So back off, man. We're professionals. Listener discretion is advised.
So you were in Vietnam, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah?
Were you in the shit?
Yeah, I was in shit.
Last night, Darth Vader came down from planet Vulcan and told me that if I didn't take Lorraine out, that he'd melt my brain.
Here's how you get him. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
Everybody wants to be naked and famous. Everybody wants to be just like me. I'm naked.
Will you help teach me about this? What is it? A new way?
Hello and welcome once again to the New Way podcast. We break down pop culture so you don't have to. I am your host, Matt Shank. I'm joined in the studio. It's always so nice to have Ben in the house by Mr. Benjamin Scott Wilson.
In the house.
In the house. And we are joined by a first-time New Way collaborator. Not the first time I have met this individual, and we will definitely talk about that amazing weekend.
Only sort of a virgin.
But so he's and not just that,
half virgin.
He hosts his own podcast as well. Mr. Erik Olsen. How's it going, Erik?
Hey, it's going well, guys. How are y'all? Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited. Ben has kind of caught me up a little bit on your podcast, and we're going to get into that for sure in a little bit here. It's totally okay to say whether you have or not. Have you listened to the New Way before, or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
no,
you're familiar with some
Absolutely.
of the cast of characters, and
I believe that he only listens to the episodes with Ryan on it.
well, that makes sense. He is a fan favorite. That's for sure. He's a crowd pleaser.
Yeah, I think my wife only listens to the episodes with Ryan. So
I too also only listen to Ryan's episodes. So really, it's just most of the New Way is Ryan.
It's just Ryan.
But yeah, I got to meet Erik at Ben's big cancer party weekend last year, the first of the two. And it was a long weekend of quite a bit of alcohol and beer being drunk. But the final Sunday, when we were all hurting really bad, I sat at a table with Erik at that brunch spot we were at, and we got to bond. You showed us many photographs of your baby boy, who you were missing quite a bit at the time. How is everything going on with your little one?
Man, he's good. He is a nut, man. He's like 2 years and 4 months or something like that. We actually have 2 of them in the house right now, which is awesome. Yeah, I'm watching my sister-in-law's kid, but it's an absolute, it's a joy to have him, dude. He's crazy. He's a little nut. I wish he wouldn't grow up so fast, you know.
It was a joy. Like exactly 1 week ago, he like busted in on me and was just like, I thought he was just ready to cuddle. He was ready to cuddle, man. 5 a.m.
He was like this guy Ben.
Yeah.
He looks like a cuddler.
Yeah, he's a cuddler.
In fairness, that's not the first time that's happened to Ben in any way.
Hey, man, it's a vibe.
I mean, when I see Ben, I want to cuddle.
So
it is a vibe.
I'd love to hear a little bit. So Erik is host of a podcast called Beer Before Fear, which is a great title. Tell us a little bit about your show.
Yeah, man. Thanks again for having me on, guys.
Absolutely.
This is awesome. When Ben reached out and said, hey, let's do this, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I hate that our co-host, or my co-host, Dan, really the guy who's the horror movie nerd compared to me. I just kind of, dabble, and then I drink beer during it. But it's a fun little deal. So basically what we do, we review a beer or two, talk about what we're drinking, talk about some beer news. Last couple episodes, we talked about beer news, and then we will review a specific horror movie. Usually it's a slasher, but we've gone into this Friday, tomorrow. God, Paranormal Activity. I didn't realize what day it was.
Wow.
Paranormal Activity. So it's I think technically our first non-slasher, although I don't know if you can call Hellraiser a slasher.
Nah.
It's our but it's our first paranormal ghost movie. And I think we're going to be doing a couple more coming up because this next episode is coming out tomorrow. It was a lot of fun. So
Nice.
yeah, we drink beer, we shoot the shit, we talk about life, and then we review a horror movie and then we rate it.
And then my favorite part is you correlate the movie with a beer, which I think is novel.
I appreciate that.
Do you have any of those that you can share with us from I know you've got about 9 episodes up there. I don't want you to give away too much of your secrets.
I do remember that Child's Play was Squiggle Worms or Squiggle Party or whatever the fuck it was.
It was Pontoon. We still act like we don't know the name of that beer, but it was Pontoon Brewing in Sandy Springs, Georgia. It was Rainbow Smiggles.
Smiggles, that's right.
So now we just call it, we're like Rainbow Wriggles. What was that beer?
Rainbow Smiggles does not sound like a real. That sounds like the made up name, and the other ones are the real.
Well, the irony is they shit all over this beer, and then like 2 weeks later, Pontoon announced they were closing. Coincidence? Yeah. I think not.
So you guys are sort of the angel of death for beer companies, as I understand it. Your podcast is.
Oh, please don't.
I won't talk about any of our favorites, and Brent, I won't talk about. Well, we'll just not name any right now.
Oh boy! Wow.
Yeah. No. I felt real bad about it. It was like a week after we released that episode, and 17 people had listened to it, and then they're just like, "Yeah, we're fucking closing."
Wow.
So I almost made it. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, what is your criteria in terms of how are you equating these beers to these properties?
Oh man, it's super abstract. So what we'll do, we have 2 different sections of beer discussion. So the first section at the beginning of the podcast is talking about basically reviewing a beer. Mm-hmm. And I'll generally try to pick a beer based on maybe where the film was located, or for instance, we did All Hallows Eve recently, and it's like a 3-part movie, and there's one part about an alien. And so we did, I think actually Pontoon had a local IPA that was called IP Alien. So I'm like, nice. Oh, that's fucking perfect, because we're doing this movie. And so stuff like that. And then that last part at the end of the podcast, we'll review the movie, and then I will compare a beer to that movie. So for spoiler alert, for Paranormal Activity,
this is a New Way exclusive, guys. This is a perk. By the way, this episode is going to air like months after your episode is aired.
It's going to air in like 3 weeks.
Okay, well then you probably heard it. Yeah, I guess it's coming out tomorrow. I mean, I didn't know for live, just cut this out.
Spoiler alert: Donald Trump was just elected in the 2020 election. That's how long ago this podcast was recorded.
Oh my god. Where was I? Anyways, Mika in Paranormal Activity, he's kind of a dick, right? And so I rated the movie Arrogant Bastard because he's just kind of an arrogant asshole. So, stuff like that. I mean, it's very abstract, but it's just fun, man. It's what 30-something-year-olds, 40-something-year-olds, we just shoot the shit, drink beer, and talk life and movies, and usually slashers.
So when Eric first told me about the concept, he was like, well, it's called Beer Before Fear, and we drink beer and rate a horror movie. I'm like, this is white guy shit 100%. I am in. Like middle-aged white boy. No, so I was like, ultimate. Like I think I listened to the first episode the day it was released. So I'm a subscriber.
He's an OG.
I'm excited to listen to this. I love the concept.
And I would say
I appreciate it.
They are very funny. I always prefer when you record the episodes back to back. I always prefer the second one. I always know it's the second one because you guys are a little looser.
I'm a little looser. Yeah. Well, the secret is I visit Variant Brewing right before because he lives kind of close to Variant. So I go get at least 2 beers before then.
Nice.
And then so that's the secret. That's the secret sauce.
I think you need to once a month. You need to do a triple, and that triple needs to be reserved for something very special. It's got to be just a very far out horror movie so that you guys can really, really unwind and dig into something with even more defenses down at that point.
Well, are we talking a triple? Like a
I'm saying
triple or a triple IPA?
Like triple IPA.
I mean, that also works. If your third in a row is a triple, that works out perfectly. Now, if you guys also want to go above and beyond and make this a 1, 2, 3 in a series, you could really, really get some steam up because the third is rarely the best, with one major exception.
Nightmare on Elm
We're going
Street.
to talk about. Yes, we will talk about that for sure.
Are we really?
100%. But normally, the third is not the best in the horror series.
No.
Friday the 13th Part 3 is actually not that bad.
I couldn't tell you.
I mean, that was the start of
what
that.
it was.
That was the first hockey mask.
Yeah. After 2, they all kind of.
He wasn't in the hockey mask.
Oh,
too?
right. Yeah.
No, he wasn't. He was in like a fucking
The burlap sack.
Burlap
Yeah,
sack
yeah.
too.
By the way, that's one of the laziest slasher the mask of all time. There's a whole movie where he's just wearing a sack on his head. Like, that is unreal.
Have you guys played the Friday the 13th co-op game for that's cross-platform?
I remember that. I
have it. I still play it. And you can pick which Jason you want to be if you happen to be Jason. And just to piss people off, I'm the burlap sack
one.
Jason, yeah.
I like when they we'll get to I do want to talk about some of those reboots and that series as well. When we get to our topic.
I'm sure we'll get there.
I forgot to get a Halloween outfit, and so I just found a burlap sack and put it on.
That
just
happened to be in the bedroom for other activities, but
yeah.
In honor of the fact that Eric,
sexual things.
in honor of the fact that Eric is on a beer and horror movie podcast. Eric, are you drinking a beer or adult beverage tonight?
I am drinking an adult beverage. Ben, I'm glad you asked.
I'm
drinking
color
the lovely Classic City Lager.
Oh, Classic City Lager from Creature Comforts.
From Athens, from Creature Comforts. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, where Ben was just this past weekend.
I was. And I met our friend Ricky Watkins for the first time.
Was that your first trip to Athens, Ben?
Yeah, first time. First time. Long time fan. First time visitor.
Wait.
So Ben sends me a picture. He sends me a picture that he's with Ricky, and the pictures of them holding a beer, both of them holding a beer or something like that. But I got it on my iPhone, and it was my Apple Watch or whatever. It was so small, it looked like they were holding hands. I was so excited. And I opened it up. And I was severely disappointed that they weren't holding hands.
I was gonna ask if Ben took him on his Athens date, because Ben has an Athens date.
Oh no, Ricky was there with his family.
Oh, that's a shame. Ben has taken his wife on this date. He's taken me on this date.
Taking Nick.
He's taking Nick on this date. He has a whole day planned in Athens. That is one of the most romantic things you will ever be involved with.
It involves trapeze. It involves Creature Comforts. It involves.
We were sat at a tiny table for two on like a Friday night in a college town. It was amazing.
Ben, did you? So Matt, you haven't been on this lovely.
No, he has.
I believe I was the number 2 because I started telling this story somewhere, and Ben's wife Beth was like, that's the exact. He took me on that exact same day night. Literally down to exactly the whole weekend.
It was like Terrapin first, and then Creature Comforts, and then Trapeze, and then like a bar after that. One of those types of things.
It was. I was ready. I was ready to go after it. I don't know if it's worked for everyone else that he's done this date with, but I put out.
He was soaked to his socks.
You take me to Trapeze. You take me to Creature Comforts. Maybe a little barking. Since we're in Athens, when in Rome. Pants are coming off. Pants are coming off.
Panties are flying across the rooms.
Unreal. I don't know if there's I do want to talk, Ben, but this could also technically go into our topic, and maybe this is a good bridge.
Yeah.
So because there's some other stuff I'd like for us to talk about when we get back on another episode. I finally, because I haven't had an active show in a little while, I've been catching up on a lot of TV, but I did finally finish House of Usher this week.
Eric, have you watched?
Have you seen House of Usher? Fall of House of Usher, Eric?
Unless it's about the '90s R&B pop star. No, I haven't.
I am so happy that every time that show has come up, someone, typically me or Ben, and now you, just makes an Usher joke, which is so wonderful. I just love this.
I mean, how awesome would it have been in episode 8 if they had like Love in This Club playing, like in the finale or a portion? That would have been pretty awesome.
Verna just shows up dressed as Usher at some point.
I need to be sold on this. What is it? Because I might, after this, I might have to. It's
Haunting of Hill House, Haunting
Yeah,
of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor. Same guy, Mike Flanagan.
Mike Flanagan. He did Midnight Mass. So Ben and I are big fans of his work. I'm not entirely sure exactly where this one falls for me amongst the others. I think there's things about it I really, really like, but I will say I'm going to try to steer somewhat clear of spoilers. Although I will say, out of all of the ones, this one is the least spoilable to me. Just even if you know what's going on, I didn't feel that it was like the reveals didn't do a whole lot for me. I think it was pretty.
It was clear cut from the
It's kind of
beginning
clear
what was
cut
happening.
what's going on, and it's very much a kind of a devil's bargain thing. But you could argue, and part of what I want to go over in our podcast, so as those of you listening who have the title in front of you, you know that we're going to be talking about slasher flicks on the podcast today. I could argue that based on a lot of the criteria of how you define a slasher flick, that Usher actually is a a slasher flick. It's Carla Gugino flashing, and it's wonderful. No, it's I think so. So I did a little kind of like research on slasher films and kind of there's the golden age of slasher films, but there's a list of kind of things, or the formula of the slasher film, and one of the like accepted formulas is that there is an action in the past that causes some severe trauma, and sort of toward the anniversary of that action, someone comes to get their revenge and kill based on it. So this is Halloween, this is Friday the 13th, this is Nightmare on Elm Street, and honestly,
Scream.
by the time you get to it, it is The Fall of House of Usher. Even though there's a very paranormal kind of vibe to it, it, to me, absolutely follows those rules at least, of a slasher film. Now, Ben, I see you're not entirely
No. I'm not disagreeing with you necessarily. I would, maybe it's because of the format of it being an 8-episode show, where you know what's going to happen every episode. It kind of falls out of slasher, but I agree that it does follow at least the base formula.
Yeah, I would never have categorized it as a slasher film at all. But it is interesting that it does fit.
It's basically a paranormal. It's a paranormal that follows. Film ideologies and rules.
It sort of, yeah. I mean, I would say the biggest thing is it's a devil. A devil makes a bargain with someone, and there's a reckoning for what that bargain is. And it's not the usual the devil takes your soul. It's something else.
And it's Succession also at the same time.
And it is also very much doing Succession. And well, also
it's Ryan Murphy to me. I mean, to me, it's like very much a Ryan Murphy show. Very like smarmy and very like just very pulpy. And
I appreciated the fact that the entire series, and even though it's technically based on one Poe story, it's a love letter to basically all of Edgar Allan Poe's
there's
works.
like 8 or 9 different Poe stories referenced
that are just kind of put in there. So it's good. I think the whole was less than the sum of its parts by the end of it. It's tough.
I really liked it.
I liked it a lot. I think Hill House and Midnight Mass for me still remain
Midnight Mass
the
is
high
still my
marks.
favorite.
Hill House is my fave. I like Midnight Mass. Now, there is something interesting about Midnight Mass I want to bring up. I was talking to one of our guests who's been on the show a couple times, JB Overwing, as she's been dubbed by some listeners. And she asked me an interesting question, and it's something I want to kind of put out here for the podcast in general before we get into our topic. We have done 216 episodes at this point of this podcast. We've not given up on the formula of doing, these very niche kind of doing these topics or these broad ranging genres or things like that. But when you get to 216 episodes, you've covered a lot of bases in terms of genres. and JB had asked if we'd ever done just vampire. She even made it vampire TV shows. She went like super niche. And I was like, you could absolutely fill a whole episode on vampire TV shows.
I can fill an entire episode on Buffy.
Buffy mentioned, and this came up, by the way, because Jamie was asking me about if I'd ever watched The Strain. And I don't know, Ben, if you remember how much I hated The Strain.
Yeah, because Guillermo del Toro was involved with that.
Originally, but whatever happened by the end of it, I think it's one of the worst pieces of television. And JB's like, I love this show. It's so dumb. It's so great. And she's like, I want to come on and talk about The Strain. And I told her, I go, please watch Midnight Mass. It's a far better vampire story than what you get in The Strain. So it got me thinking in terms of those of you listening that like to tell us or ask about things, or even just for Ben and Nick and me to think about, what are the weird niche things that we can just dive into for an hour on the podcast, like historically based musicals. Like there's so many niche topics that we absolutely could geek out for an hour.
Can you hear the people singing the song?
It's going to be just a lot of Les Mis in 1776, and then until Ben lets us talk about Hamilton towards the end. But
right, of course.
But yeah, I so those of you listening, please feel free to write what is the weird genre of a subgenre of a subgenre that you want to hear us talk about, and we'll make an episode about it, because I think like the idea of just literally limiting it to vampire TV shows is hysterical.
And please say vampire musicals populated by emo music, because I've already done that.
That's the one that Elizabeth is going to want to be on, because she is a Dracula super nerd, so that will be great. So go ahead, Ben.
Well, I was going to say, actually, before we get into the topic, I would like to... So we're talking about slasher films, right?
We are.
Before we do a fun little game that I cultivated for you guys, Eric, what would you say is your base feeling or knowledge on the slasher genre, and how did you come into being a fan or an advocate of that genre or subgenre?
So, like, base feeling, like, what do you mean? I mean, so when I think base feeling, I see images of, like, the screen mask. So you probably, I mean, Ben, you're an avid listener, and I really appreciate that, man. But, like, everything that, when it comes to slasher films, it sounds ridiculous. But I base it on the 90s slashers, right? The Wes Craven slashers that are, like, obviously post-Wes Craven 80s. Early to mid 90s Scream. I mean, that's everything I base a slasher on.
And how old are you, Eric? Just for reference, I'm just curious.
I'm 37.
Okay.
So I mean, that was like right when I was
it's interesting because you go straight to 90s. I'm 7 years older than you, so I'm firmly in the 80s in terms of where slashers were, and I watched some shitty, dumb slasher movie, like the Slumber Party Massacre movies were, and we weren't watching them for the massacre. We were watching them for the slumber party. But yeah, we're 10 years old, so these were great. But it is interesting that like just that small age gap can make a big difference in what was your jumping off point.
That's my jumping off point just by chance. I probably watched outside of Scream, I mean, I'm not going to sit there and watch The Faculty, right? Like, The Faculty fucking sucks.
Whoa. Eric.
It's a horrible
Eric, I'm going to give you just a moment to retract the incendiary statement you just made to two of the biggest fans of that silly, but ultimately very watchable movie.
Also written by Kevin Williamson.
Yeah, written by the main.
It is written by Kevin Williamson.
And directed by Robert Rodriguez. And has an amazing cast, and is actually smart.
And that girl gets naked in it for a whole scene.
It is smart. All right, let's rewind it 20 seconds that I didn't say that. All right, can we start over?
No. Eric, we can never start over. No, it's clear you prefer I Know What You Did Last Summer to The Faculty, and that's fine.
First of all,
it's a sad truth, but it's the life that.
Oh wait, I know. I'm so sorry. I have to clarify. Is that actually? Do you actually think that
Also
Know What
written
You
by
Did
Kevin
Last
Williamson.
Summer.
No, I know.
Okay, because it's one of the worst
is,
movies ever made.
It is my jumping. Oh, it's terrible. What do
Yeah.
you want from me? Come and find me. I'm right here. That's the crux. That's
that and the
pinnacle
fact
of
that they're
movie,
being
and that's
hunted by the Gordon's fishermen, and it looks just like the guy that's on the package of fish sticks that you get at your frozen feed. I mean,
Also written by Kevin Williamson.
I don't care. Listen, he was used up by that
Kevin
point.
Williamson.
He did all his good shit.
No,
and
he
was done.
he actually
Listen. Kevin Williamson decided to do that movie because he heard Jennifer Love Tits is going to be on the movie.
no, he actually wrote the movie before he wrote Scream.
Oh, and they were just like, let's buy up every property of his.
They're like,
that
let's
makes sense.
buy everything that he's done.
It is.
It's bad. It's really bad.
Inarguably one of
It's
the worst movies ever
Really,
made.
it's a bad horror movie.
I just got so nervous that we were.
It's no phantoms.
I would have had to have just like pretended that Eric's feed was lost if he actually liked I Know What You Did Last Summer over The Faculty. Even though I understand The Faculty is silly, but
no, The Faculty. I understand why people don't like The Faculty. I don't think you can say objectively that I Know What You Did Last Summer is a good movie.
No.
But we don't shit on what people like. That's fine. Like,
sure.
Whatever.
Unless it's I Know What You Did Last Summer.
But to get back to the point that that was my starting point.
Yeah.
And it's the thing is that's probably why I love slasher so much, because everyone other than Scream, everything from I Know What You Did Last Summer is an uphill climb because almost everything's better.
Well, I do have a question for you guys, and I sure. was going to try to back into this later in the episode, but where we're talking about it now is I think makes it apropos. Did Scream kill the slasher genre?
No, it rebirthed it, I think.
It did. Yeah. It reinvigorated what we knew.
But, my question is, what are the iconic that actually fall into the category of slasher films that followed Scream?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I think that
Scream 2.
Okay, 100%. Yes, it launched the franchise, but I think it literally.
I know, I'm kidding.
But I do think.
But what were the slashers that came out in the 90s before 1996 that were popular?
None.
No, I agree that but I think it reinvigorated, but also killed at the same time because it didn't launch more slasher movies.
Well, but here's the thing. I feel like the slasher as a genre, and if you want my perspective, has always popularized, depopularized, popularized, depopularized. It goes on these little waves.
Okay.
Ever since, I mean, if you want to go back to Peeping Tom, you can, but ultimately it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Psycho, and then Peeping Tom, and then nothing for a long time, and then Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and everything got really popular for a little bit, and then it completely fell out in the late 80s. And then Scream repopularized it, and there were a bunch that were really popular for a while, and then they depopularized. And then I would say, when Your Next came out, and people were like, oh yeah, you can knowingly have fun with these things, we forgot about that. And then Happy Death Day and all these other ones start coming out.
Did like Happy Death Day quite
Happy Death Day is a fucking awesome movie.
I think that's a fun movie.
Yeah, I know it's a slasher meets. If I'm thinking of the right one, it's slasher meets Groundhog Day.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They've got a new one that's on the same basis. That's like a Back to the Future, but it's like Back to the Future meets slasher, which I've not seen it. It just came out recently, but the trailer looks phenomenally good.
Yeah, and there's the one with the whole family. It's the rich family, and they go on the hunting game where
Your Next.
Yeah, not Your Next. No, I was saying Your Next kind of. That was 2011, 2012 is when Your Next came out, and that sort of rebirthed all the current iteration of horror films, slasher films.
It's hard. It's really hard to do them post Scream because it did dissect them so well.
Right, and now they're getting higher concept, but there are lots of fun ones out there. I mean, there are lots of really cool.
Well, it's
films.
something that this is a slight tangent, and I want to get us back here, but it is very interesting to watch these movies that kind of parody or ape or really encapsulate a genre where they force the genre to evolve, or they force the property to evolve. And even something, if you look at Austin Powers, very much changed what happened with the James Bond franchise as a response to that, because you couldn't put a normal, like at that point what James Bond movies were, you couldn't put that out after Austin Powers because it becomes the parody. It's too silly, and they're like, and so that's when you have Die Another Day comes out and it bombs, and it's because you can't do it. So that's why they have to reboot and go to Casino Royale and really say we're going to completely change what this is, which is I think what Scream did to a lot of, not even just slasher movies, to horror in general. It made people have to rethink and get smarter about what they were doing.
Yeah, so you're basically saying it set the bar so high out of nowhere that almost anything that came after it was dead.
It didn't
work. Like, yeah,
I don't even think it's a bar. It's more like if someone came out and showed you how David Copperfield did all of his tricks, and then he tried to come out and just do the same shit again, you go, well, we know how this is done. This isn't interesting to us anymore. We've seen too far behind the curtain, and now it's like, because you've got, if you're like a horror nerd, you knew about the tropes, the deep dive tropes of slasher films. But Scream took that and gave it to everyone and just said, hey, sure, everyone, this is all the shit you've been watching for years, and here's why you like it or don't like it or what it is, and all that stuff's behind it, so that once that happens, you can't release that movie. You can't go back and do it because they know the secret. They already know how it works and how the sausage is made. You've got to do something above and beyond that.
Yeah,
true. I mean that's a very good thought. That's an extremely good thought.
And then it gave birth to A24. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna do the fucking Green Knight. How do you like that shit? Like, dissect that one, nerds. Come on now.
Well, now that we've at least extrapolated some of those initial thoughts about slasher films, I had a quick game. It would have worked better if Dan was here, but now I'm gonna change the format a little bit, which is I have a list of films that one of the great tropes of or not tropes, but like consistent things of slasher films is their working title was always something different, and then it changes.
Love this.
So I'm going to give you guys 10 different titles of different movies. But it's the working title of the film. And whoever can tell me first what the actual movie was that came out.
Do you want to just go back and forth so we're not trying to talk over each other?
I think it's fine with the two of you.
Okay.
You guys can just buzz in with the name. And here's the thing. So it's going to start relatively easy.
All right.
And I'll actually let you know when the points are going to increase. So I'm going to go from there. So
okay.
So Eric, you understand the rules of this game. I'm basically just going to say this was the working title of the film. Tell me what the actual title was. So whoever says that answer first gets the point. Make sense?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
All right. So the first ones are going to be easy. 1 point. Let's start with Leatherface.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Okay, well, Matt got that one, so that's one for Matt.
Eric might be just on a delay on Zoom. I don't know. That's why I don't know about this, but all right. I think it's a tie. We both got a point. Give us both a point.
Okay, right. All right. So
we also were going so fast that we both said Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Texas.
Chex Mix Massacre.
Chex Mix Chainsaw Massacre.
One of my favorite movies ever.
Only served around the holidays. All right, here's another.
They come with a special edition where they're actually covered with powdered sugar too.
Right. All right, so here's another very easy one. Scary movie.
Scream.
I'm going to give you both one because there is a slight delay there. Very easy. All right. Batteries not included.
Child's Play.
Nice.
Eric has it.
Done. Well done. God, that's good.
Yeah, they had to change the name because they didn't realize Spielberg was producing a movie called Batteries Not Included at the same time.
That's crazy.
All right, we're gonna get a little more difficult here. These are 2 points. The Faces. The Faces. You can throw out multiple answers if you want to.
Face Off.
Yep.
The Faces.
The Faces.
The Mirror has 2 faces.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Nope.
The Faces.
Do I lose points if I guess?
No, keep guessing.
I'll give you 10 seconds.
Oh God. Obviously, it's not going to be Halloween.
Alien?
It is The Strangers.
Oh, that
good
makes
flick.
sense. That makes sense.
Good flick.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All right. Here's a maybe slightly easier. The Babysitter Murders.
Halloween.
Yep. That's correct. Halloween.
I knew that one.
That one I knew.
One more. Flight 180. Now,
Airplane.
yeah. So first off, this is almost a cheat too because it's not really a slasher movie, but it does abide by all the rules.
The Twilight Zone?
No, Flight 180. 180.
Flight Plan?
What's a slasher movie that involves a flight?
Snakes on a Plane. Eric looked so expectantly to Ben to see if that was the
What is
answer.
a horror movie that applies?
Red Eye.
No.
That is a good. That's a good. I mean, it's.
What are the? I don't know any other. I don't off the top of my head know
Final
any other.
Destination.
Oh, it doesn't happen on the goddamn plane. He hasn't.
It was
killed
called
it.
Flight 180. That was its
What was the
working
working
title.
title for that one?
Flight 180.
It should have been called
all right.
Tony Todd only worked one day on this movie.
All right. These ones are worth 3 points. Sleepless Nights.
Friday the 13th.
Poltergeist.
Oh, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nope.
Nightmare.
Poltergeist. Good guess.
I will give a hint. It has already been mentioned on this podcast.
Paranormal Activity.
Nope. It was already mentioned on this podcast.
I know what you did last summer.
Nope. Even better.
I'm so upset.
It is Slumber Party Massacre.
Oh no!
Which, by the way, very cool little trivia on Slumber Party Massacre. Only horror genre franchise to be entirely directed by women.
Wow.
Wow.
Yes.
I know that the killer in one of them had a guitar with a drill on it. That was amazing. And boobs.
It's a very innovative. Yes, it's a very innovative murder weapon.
It was a great way for that woman director to kill all of the women. In
All right.
movie.
Two more in the 3 point category, and then we'll end the game.
All right.
House of Evil.
Evil Dead.
No. Not a slasher. But
House on Haunted. Oh no, yeah. House of Evil. Oh.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
No. Going once. Going twice.
Last house on the left?
The House on Sorority Row.
Wow, Ben. I don't know that
wow.
film.
Yeah, you're getting.
I don't know that one.
Well, these are a little more.
I feel like
difficult.
Dan would have been so much better.
Yeah.
At this.
Well. I mean, I didn't build this out for both of you guys, but that's fine. All right, last one. This one has 2 alternate titles.
Oh boy.
One is Stop Me.
Wait, what?
Stop me,
Stop
Smee.
Me.
Stop me. Stop me, Smee. Stop me, Smee.
Yes. Stop Me, comma, Smee. No, it's just Stop Me. And then the other one is Stranger in the House.
Stranger in the House.
And this is one of my favorite slasher films of all time.
Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. No? I'm pretty sure it's Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. One of your favorites. Last House on the Left?
No.
Slasher movie.
Slasher movie.
I mean, there is like
classic
that-
slasher
there is-
movie. Came out the same year as Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The movie is Black Christmas,
Oh.
which I fucking love. Black Christmas is awesome.
Didn't they remake? They remade Black Christmas, right?
I think
They did, yeah,
yeah.
a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't see the remake. I didn't hear.
I
it was
heard
very
not
good.
so good things about that one, but all right,
It was
good game.
It was a.
Well,
yeah, that was good.
Anyways,
Great game.
Matt ended up winning by 1 point, Eric. So, so on the next Beer Before Fear episode, Matt will be replacing Eric.
I want to sit in. I want to sit in for one episode, and all I'm gonna do is whenever Eric says something, I'm just gonna go wrong,
No.
wrong,
Hey,
no,
you know what? I'm
wrong,
pretty
incorrect.
Sure, I'm pretty sure in several episodes of Beer Before Fear, and already this evening, I've said I'm here for the beer. Okay, I'm here for the beer.
I respect that. I also,
I
what's funny is
dabble.
that I guarantee, Eric, that Ben will run circles around us in this topic tonight. Because
there's no
I am
doubt.
not
You
a
already
I am
have.
not a huge horror nut.
Well, so I am going to make Patrick Barrett drink right now. Because
You're gonna talk about
I'm going
Alien?
to. I'm going. No. I'm going to talk about pre-code film. Slashers actually predate sound. I mean, they are some of the tropes that are found in slasher horror films are from the 1920s, basically. A lot of people say that the advent of the rules of the modern slasher were after sound, but Scylla Myrna Loy in 13 Women in 1934. So listen to this plot. See if this sounds familiar. A woman is ostracized from a social sorority because of her ethnicity, and then uses mystical powers to get back on them and systematically kills all other 12 of them. Sounds
Not just slasher, but the idea that it involves race relations type stuff or like
Yeah.
ethnicity.
1934.
That is impressive.
yeah.
That is
13 Women.
impressive.
I've actually never seen the film. I love Mira Loy. I mean, obviously she was in The Thin Man like 2 years later. But yeah, I looked it up, and a lot of people say, "Hey, this was the advent of those rules of the revenge. Like something happens, somebody is wronged, and whether it's that person or somebody else acting on their behalf,
Yeah.
those wrongs are somehow." Not righted, but there's
a vengeance.
There's a vengeance that comes back and does that. And there's actually a lot of films like that in the 1920s and 1930s. People say that's the first one that kind of played by the rules. So
I mean, I look at slashers as, kind of like it's art imitating life, right? And you have things like Jack the Ripper back in, whenever that was, what, the 1700s,
1890s.
1890s, right? And so, one of the first couple, rules of slasher, right? Morality, less morality is closer to mortality, right? Or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then of course you have, sex and whatnot. And he was killing prostitutes, right? And it kind of ties in there, right? I mean,
Right,
I wonder if that's the kind of stuff that started this entire thing.
Well,
This
and
entire
And I think it's so
genre.
funny. Like the thing that's so interesting to me about this is how that's become such a staple in it. But it was an accidental staple on Carpenter's part that he didn't mean for Laurie to represent this virginal thing. There was no correlation to him, but amongst those. But then once it happens twice, once you do that in another movie and it happens, and then you get to that kind of the last girl standing idea of things, then it becomes this trope. And then you start to make these morality plays on it as well, which makes it a very interesting. it's all horror at some point really comes back to some version of like kind of the punishment in heaven hell kind of thing of like your actions have consequences for all of these things, to where slashers are almost that you could say that they're like the next step of a vigilante. They're like if Batman didn't have the no kill rule, he'd be a slasher villain. Like he would just go around and start like taking vengeance on all of these people that like wronged him or did whatever it was.
Petty thieves and things like that. Like the guy shoplifts and he's like
he just kills them.
You stole the wrong taquito.
Oh no! These Batman's just killing kids that are stealing taquitos, and he's just like, oh, that's dark. That's very dark.
This candy bar.
I think one of the
candy bar is really worth it. Guess what, kid?
It's such an amazing movie that we need to be writing right now. One of the things I really loved about Scream is something that I hadn't kind of put together for myself, but I was reading, kind of researching this week. So you have this idea. So those of you listening, if you don't know, there's there's a trope in slasher movies, which is the final girl. And this was really cemented with Halloween, with Jamie Lee Curtis survives and makes it through. You could also say that Alien is very much in the final girl trope as well. A drink. So you've got this idea of this heroine that is the only one that can best the villain. And what happens in almost every single franchise is that there's nowhere for them to go with that. So they have to kill off the final girl in the next one so they can make the star of the series the villain. So that's why you have, 100 Friday the 13th and 100 Nightmare on Elm Street and all these movies with sequels, and it's always the villain that's carried through it. The one that subverted this, and again why it probably killed it, is Scream. Scream is the only one where the final girl is the through line, other than the most recent one. We could talk about that maybe, but the idea is
she still exists in that world.
She still exists. Sidney Prescott goes, and what's even more fascinating, it's never the same killer. So your villain is changing every single time. Yes, it's Ghostface, but it's someone different underneath that mask, or multiple people underneath that mask.
But you can say she's always the Ghostface killer.
I mean, Nick wasn't here to do it, so you had to. I get it. But it was lobbed up there so easy, Ben. But I love it. I do love it.
It was sitting on it.
It was sitting right there for someone to take. But yeah, I think it is fascinating that Scream is one of these franchises that turned it so much on its head. They could literally make them with the same visual of the killer, but all different each time, and you bring your heroine through all of that, and she gets to grow and progress, and she's the star of the franchise instead of the star of the franchise being the killer.
I really only invited Eric on this podcast because I want to talk about Scream too.
Really?
I would love to talk about Scream too.
I'm not joking. I'm halfway joking there because I just want you on the podcast, but I think you and I both have an appreciation for Scream 2 that goes well beyond it's a good sequel. I think Scream 2 is actually better than Scream 1, which is very weird. Most people do not share that.
Well, I mean, it's funny too because the whole setup to the movie, like when the killings first started, you have that scene, Ben, what you're talking about, number 2 being better than number 1, which I do agree. Possibly, it's borderline, but it probably is 2 better than 1. And 3 is garbage. Never watched that movie.
No, 3 is
really bad.
It's the worst Scream movie by far.
Other than the Carrie Fisher and Jay and Silent Bob cameos, it is the worst of all of them.
Yes, that is true. That was that. Okay. Hey,
Carrie Fisher. I slept with
Connie.
Yeah. The one who slept. The one who.
And also
the
reverse of that, of the cameo of Wes Craven in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, where it's like he's shooting another Scream movie and they rip the mask off and it's an orangutan, and someone goes, "Jesus, Wes," it's Gus Van Sant goes, "Jesus, Wes, aren't you even trying anymore?" And it's just Wes Craven with a sack of money going, "I said I was busy. I said I was busy."
Right.
It's great, amazing.
But what's so smart about that movie is that they try so hard to keep the killer, keep that under wraps, right? but they also do such a good job of getting to that borderline to where they're almost making it too obvious. Like in number 2, they're talking in the classroom, and Mickey, the killer, is like, and they're in that film class, and he is like arguing
why the sequel,
he's
like
arguing
sequels
why
that
sequels are always, aren't always works, right? And he's like trying to think of and he's like The Godfather 2, and then everybody's like, oh yeah, but that whole lead up, he's like, sequels can actually, make the films better, right? Or something like that. I can't remember what his line was, but it's like, holy shit, man. And then you find out it's him at the end, and you're like, okay, it all fits together.
I mean, it's
But
Timothy
it's even
Oliphant,
smarter.
who's
It's even
great.
smarter than number 1 entire movie.
Well, but it also does the perfect homage to Friday the 13th, which is where
Yes,
you
it
have
does.
the mom.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so it's
the
the mom and him, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, so you can do the homage, and you can just have it be the character that you thought was dangerous, and it's a red herring, and it definitely can't be that guy.
Exactly.
And did both at the same time.
Well, yeah, they have the line in the classroom where both he and Randy like cancel themselves out, because if one of them is a suspect, then both of them have to be the suspect. So both like, all right, fair enough. No, we're done.
That scene was actually between Dewey and.
Yeah, it's.
Oh, I thought it was
Dewey.
Randy.
No. It was Randy and Dewey.
Oh, Randy and Dewey. Oh,
yeah.
okay, gotcha,
They're in a Starbucks or in a coffee shop. or something.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember there was
he's like,
Randy and
well,
Mickey
he's
at
like,
some
well-
point, but it's been a while since I've seen that.
If I'm a suspect, you're a suspect. He's like, touche.
Yeah.
He's like, you're right. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is that's
Yeah.
a great round. It's a great roundabout to get outside of that, writing that hole on there. But
Well, I think the reason why I like that movie so much is because the first movie, we're doing meta, right? We're doing meta, and we're talking about commentary on slashers. And then Scream 2, it's like, how do you one-up that or whatever? And it's like, well, not only are we going to talk about the commentary on sequels overall,
yeah.
like whatever, but or I mean, like horror sequels, but just sequels in general.
Yeah.
And it's like, it turns into this entire film discussion, and the fact that they're in film class is just fucking hysterical to me.
Yeah. And Randy's
Oh,
death
it
is fantastic.
Yeah,
It's phenomenal.
and it's an unbelievable, unexpected death. When it's like, you have to have a main character die. They talked about it earlier in the movie. You have to have a main character die, and the body count's going to be higher.
By the way, I don't want to make this entirely just a Scream podcast.
No, it's not. I have other stuff to talk about.
I'm totally okay if you do it.
Have you guys watched at all? On it's largely on TikTok. I've seen it. If you're not a TikTok person, you maybe have not seen it. But there's this theater company out in Las Vegas that does unlicensed musical versions of famous movies, oftentimes horror movies. So they have done Scream, and Ben, it is literally the spiritual successor to what we do on our podcast. It's all pop culture songs from that era doing Scream, and it's them doing Scream on stage with musical numbers,
By
with
stabbing westward,
but like Backstreet Boys and
God.
like whatever songs were popular in '96.
I would assume it was like Oasis and Massive Attack.
I'm gonna send you clips from it. I'm not gonna lie. Every single clip I see of it, I'm hysterically laughing and so happy watching it. And the guy that is doing Matthew Lillard is doing it so well. It's unreal. But I highly recommend, if you are a fan of what you're listening to in the podcast right now, please go look up Scream Musical Las Vegas. It looks amazing.
I do think it's interesting that in Scream they found Matthew Lillard, and in Scream 2 they found Matthew Lillard again in Timothy Oliphant.
Yeah.
That was kind of like wild.
He was an extra, right, in the movie.
Oliphant? No. Lillard was Lillard has an unbilled cameo in 2 that makes people think that Stu. There's a whole thing about Stu surviving or not, because he has had cameos in multiple movies, and apparently there was a plan. I don't know if it was in the last one or the one that just came out, but one of the most recent 2 Screams, he was being written into the script, but then there was a turnaround with the studio and they wound up not doing it. But there is a justice for Stu that Stu is alive out there somehow, and he's going to come back for a Scream. And they're going to make it like a Saw movie at that point, but it's fine, you know.
It'll be the equivalent of Saw 20, whenever that one comes out. Probably next year. Just released that, Saw 10.
Yeah.
So also abiding by the rules of the slasher, we have to talk about Freddy Krueger. We have to talk about Nightmare on Elm Street.
The best of all of the slasher genre for me.
Can we not talk about Child's Play though?
No.
We're gonna absolutely talk about.
No, we're not. We're gonna skip over.
Why? Why are we not going to talk about
because you don't want to hear me go on my rant.
If you would like to hear about Child's Play, check out Fear Before Fear episode 5.
First of all, when someone says you don't want to hear my rant about, I immediately want to hear that rant about.
It boils down to this: just fucking kick him.
Just fucking kick.
First of all, Eric, with all due respect, with all due respect, that is a hardened criminal did a voodoo did a voodoo magic and put himself into a doll. If that's possible, we have to suspend all disbelief that anything's possible in that universe, because that's batshit crazy.
Well, you know what, Matt? I'm a realist, and that doll is a foot and a half. Okay.
I'm gonna also say Brad Dourif can fuck somebody up, and he is the voice of that doll, and he's gonna find a way.
He didn't even mention Brad Dourif on the podcast. I was very upset about that.
I mean, I think you're just
we dabble.
I think to just dismiss someone based on their size. In fact, there's a famous quote from Shakespeare that says, "Judge me by my size, do you?" And I'm pretty sure that was Shakespeare. I don't know 100%, but I think it was Shakespeare. But
there was another wise.
It was actually Ron Jeremy.
Another wise man once told me, just because I'm 5'9" doesn't mean I can't kick the shit out of you. And that wise man was Nick Sandberg.
Somebody once told me that the world's gonna roll me because I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. But anyway, if we could do this all day. We could do this all day. R.I.P. Breaking that news because this was recorded 17 months ago.
Like Back in the Future.
I just hope Matthew Perry's okay.
God. No.
Come on, man.
Let's make sure Reginald Al Johnson's doing okay.
He's gonna outlive us all.
He will.
Despite Nick.
He will outlive all of us.
Unreal. It was wonderful. No, all right. So Nightmare on Elm Street, I'm going to just say it right now, is such an elevation on the genre, and the fact that it hits its peak of its run in the third movie, written by Frank Darabont, and Dream Warriors, which is one of the most incredible pieces of horror or just fantasy writing ever. I watched that movie nonstop as a kid. It was so good, so great.
Well, the thing is 3 isn't scary at all. It's an amazing movie. I mean,
it's a fantasy movie.
It's a fantasy movie.
Yeah.
It's not scary.
Yeah.
The first Nightmare on Elm Street is
terrifying.
Fucking terrifying. And I would say probably because I was never scared. I was never scared by Halloween.
No,
Halloween never scared me. I understand what it did for the genre, and I love John Carpenter. I think The Thing is way scarier than
absolutely
than Halloween is to me. But Nightmare on Elm Street was one of those movies I saw a little too young, and I was like, and Freddy Krueger fucking scared me. And then Freddy changed in the movies and became a little bit more, less threatening, I think, is the.
Which I mean, Wes Craven said that he hated what happened with most of the sequels.
Well, I mean, there's always something that you're afraid of what you can't run away from, right? And I mean, you can't go to sleep, and you can't run away from it when you go to sleep, right? So that scares the hell out of me. I mean, I'm surprised there wasn't like an epidemic of insomnia after that movie came out because it was absolutely terrifying.
I mean,
I
cocaine
didn't
became
wanna go
really
to
big
sleep.
around that time.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
is
I don't
true.
want to say it was a response to
true.
Reagan's, Nancy Reagan's Just Say No, but the people are like, how do we stay
Yeah.
up? And like, Wes Craven's like, I got cocaine right here for you.
Yeah, it actually
Go for
wasn't
it.
listed on the credits, but Pablo Escobar was actually funding that movie.
Yeah.
He was the key grip on
Yeah,
that
he
film.
was.
Yeah,
He was, and the distributor was Boston George.
Yeah. And the company that makes No-Nos was founded the day after it came out.
well, and what's really fascinating about it is just the premise alone is a great just way to be scared by things. But there are so many iconic visuals in that movie that were so just fucking terrifying. Like the body bag being dragged down the school hall, leaving the giant blood stain.
Yeah, the blood
on
stain.
it.
Yeah.
It was like I can
absolutely.
see, like seeing it the first time, it's just like holy shit. The girl being like thrown around the room while she's being killed by this thing that this guy can't see, who's about to go to jail.
Dragged up the wall.
Yeah,
I mean, it's still the most one of the most gruesome images I ever remember seeing. And you're just seeing the reaction of the violence and cuts and blood, but you're not actually seeing somebody do it, which makes it that much scarier. Or it's like,
That's what makes it.
yeah,
Of course.
it makes it fucking terrifying.
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's what's it called? God, why? It's 2 beers, Eric. Jesus Christ, get it together. No, I mean it's a paranormal movie meets a slasher. It's
that's what it is.
Absolutely terrifying. It's incredibly smart, and it really doesn't get much better. I actually don't watch that movie enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and just the premise of Freddy Krueger himself, of this fucking child molester, like this child molester, the parents were all like, hey, alleged. If we go by the reboot wants to paint that in a different light, I choose to believe that in the original that the guy that he was doing something bad enough that a bunch of parents got together and were like, we should probably burn this man to death to protect our kids. Like they had to have some pretty decent evidence on their hands at that point.
Yeah,
but also I love that concept of all of these parents being in on this secret. Like all of these parents being like, we've these young kids that are growing up and there's this child molester in the neighborhood and we are going to be vigilantes and take it into our own hands and burn this man alive in a boiler room. Like there's so many there's so many pieces of that are on there. Just that alone would have been enough to make it scary, but you keep adding on the visuals and you add on the idea of you can't fall asleep. It's amazing.
So I mean the script was written by Wes Craven, and apparently it was based on some kind of urban legend too, where that scared him.
Yes,
as a kid.
Well, there's two amazing influences on Nightmare on Elm Street that I'm super excited to get to share. One is one most people know, which is that he had a bully when he was a kid named Fred Krueger.
Yeah,
and he
I knew
wrote
that.
him not only as Freddy Krueger, but also Krug in Last House on the Left. Like this guy tormented him enough that in his adult life he just started making movies to do it. But the other was, this one blew my mind. And the fact that Ben and I wrote a TV series based on dreams and had not unearthed this is amazing to me. Maybe you knew this, Ben. But Wes Craven was largely inspired by the song Dreamweaver. And he was so much inspired in the writing of Nightmare on Elm Street by Dreamweaver that it also inspired the score, which is why it's such a synth-heavy score, because he was listening to the song Dreamweaver quite a bit and being like, you know what? Not only is this an amazing premise, I want to make this our score. So that's why the Nightmare on Elm Street is the super synthy theme on there, which is crazy.
It goes absolutely with dreams and meditation and whatnot. I mean, it's absolutely a perfect score for that movie.
Yeah,
and that's why Heather Langenkamp goes to Johnny Depp and says, "I believe you can get me through the night."
Yeah, you can, Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
It would be
Yeah, you
amazing
can.
if he had literally worked in all of the lyrics of that
lyrics of
song
Dreamweaver.
slowly. If Kevin Williamson wrote A Nightmare on Elm Street, that's what it would be. It would be all of the lyrics of Dreamweaver just peppered throughout that thing. But yeah, it is. To me, it's the gold standard. I don't think there is better marriage of genres than that one.
Yeah. What's insane is that. Sorry, Ben. Go ahead.
No. I was actually about to ask you. So you should finish your thought first.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask you, understanding where we are now, if you go past the year 2000, I was interested in what Eric's more contemporary favorite slasher is, like of nowadays.
I actually am not. So, yeah, putting me on the spot as far as like. So there's this movie that I really really enjoyed. So I try to stay. I say I try to stay away because I'm like these are getting really fucked up. But there's a movie that you should never watch called Green Inferno, and it's not.
Oh no, it's Eli Roth.
But it's Eli Roth. Yeah, I mean, I do really enjoy Eli Roth stuff. It's really, really, really messed up. He's a great actor, by the way, but it's really, really fucked up shit. But it's not slasher, but I actually really enjoy. Have you ever seen The Ritual?
Oh yeah, Ritual's a great movie.
Phenomenal movie.
I
enjoy stuff like that. Those are things that I've been watching recently. On like during the Halloween season or whatever.
The Ritual has my old friend Amy Simons in it.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Who I went to college with. That was Ty West. Was The Ritual.
I like Ty West.
Yeah.
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 I mean, I enjoyed those reboots, though. I mean, the only one that was really, really bad was probably Nightmare on Elm Street. It was an absolutely horrible reboot,
it was really
in my
bad.
opinion. If you guys get upset, like when I said that off the faculty, I'm going to start questioning the faculty again.
I don't think it's a good movie. I do quite like Jackie Earle Haley and almost anything he can do. He's great in what's an otherwise just completely forgettable and terrible flick. But yeah, what's interesting, what I was going to say earlier, is that, when they rebooted Friday the 13th, I love that their through line was that like, we are going to combine the first three movies into one movie. And like they literally do the first movie is the prologue.
They talked about this on the podcast.
Oh, did you guys? I think that's a very smart way to do something, to kind of just be like, we're going to do almost like the Cliff's Notes of it, because especially when you're making a movie 20, 30 years after the original was made, the biggest thing you guys have kids, Ben, you're showing your daughters movies, and the number one thing is that it's like, this is so slow. Why is this so slow? There's like nothing happening. There's all of this like wasted time, and like things just move so much quicker now. So that absolutely those first three Friday the 13th movies, there's tons of it. They're calling it atmosphere, but it wasn't atmosphere back then. They had no money. They had to like, how do we fill time to make 90 minutes of movie?
So what you're saying is you can't wait to see the Marvels with the girls on Saturday.
First of all, I am super excited to watch the Marvels. I loved Miss Marvel, so I am super, super happy about that. But yeah, it's the way things are paced now, for better or worse, is just it's different.
Yeah.
And doing that for a slasher movie makes such perfect sense, because you have a little bit longer running time anyway, right? You're looking at movies in the 80s were at 90 minutes, 92 minutes or under, versus now we're much more accustomed to a 2-hour plus movie at the minimum. So I like that I like what they did with that. Whether the movie ultimately is successful, that's hard for me to say, because I was never a big Friday the 13th fan. Like I'll be the first to say I thought they were fine.
I like the first one.
Yeah,
I like
it's
the first
fine, but I don't know. To me, I think when you go back and you watch a bunch of these movies side by side, I think Nightmare on Elm Street easily at the top. I think Halloween.
Let me tell you, none of them are Sleepaway Camp.
That's very different. Very different.
None of them are what?
Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah, that's a very different one. No, but I think, even Halloween, which I'm not a huge, I'm not a big Halloween person, but that the opening of that movie is very effective and very good.
Halloween's a fantastic film.
Yeah.
I don't think you can argue that. I don't think it's scary.
Yeah.
Where I found the original Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, very scary. And I think that's a really interesting thing with the slasher that genre is I find that most of them, other than Nightmare on Elm Street, even Scream has great jump scares in it. Scream is not scary to me. And I don't know that I can think of any other pure slasher films other than Nightmare on Elm Street that are actually scary. They're like a fun house. They're like going to a haunted house that's like things are jumping out at you and it's stuff, but they're not going to unsettle you or stick with you. They're just kind of like
I mean, Texas Chainsaw Massacre definitely stuck with me.
What's crazy? You know what's crazy about that, Ben, is that like Texas Chainsaw Massacre has absolutely no. There's no music.
There's no music. There's no jump scares.
There's no sound. There's no jump scare. But Halloween, in my opinion, that's where we differ. Is that I'm absolutely terrified of Halloween because of the music, because of the soundtrack, everything in that movie.
I mean, John Carpenter's score is pretty fucking awesome.
It's fair to say the score is scary.
Phenomenal.
The movie isn't.
I mean, if you're walking, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just what triggers my fear emotions, right?
Sure.
Is the score, right? But Texas Chainsaw Massacre's raw. And it's like, and it could happen, right? It could happen. And it was like, oh yeah, well, they're in severe poverty. They're just trying to get by. They're trying to live.
Glad we don't have that problem nowadays.
Coming from what? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But these fucking hippies come by and they're like, well, let's just make them into meat, and then we'll sell them, and then in the meat market, and then we'll be fine and we'll eat them too. That kind of stuff could happen. I mean, I guess all of these horror movies could happen, but that one is probably the most raw, and that's what's the scariest. And I actually agree with you there. But I will say again, Halloween is probably the scariest to me because of the score.
Well, I like that everyone kind of goes in a different direction on that one because I'm not typically scared by most slasher movies. I will say I think it's interesting that a lot of very iconic villains that showed up in later properties that are not slasher movies, or maybe not traditional slasher movies, are inspired by slasher villains. Hannibal Lecter, Silence of the Lambs, while that does not follow the rules of a slasher movie, is almost a slasher villain. If that makes sense.
Sure. I mean, there's an iconic shot in the movie
where
he has got a scalpel and he is slashing with blood flying everywhere. He is the poster child for slasher. I mean, if anyone qualifies, I'm going to say he qualifies. And then he eats them on top of it.
Right.
It's not a slasher, right? It's a
psychological thriller.
Psychological thriller. But what is funny though, I mean, he's inspired by the same character, the same real life character who inspired so many other slashers.
Yes,
and Gain, right? Was it Endgame?
Well,
yes.
Yeah. There's Gain and there's Edward Gain.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, it basically him and Bundy and John Wayne Gacy account for almost all of our movie villains from.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same way that you can't call Zodiac a slasher movie, but it's like, wow, there are some pretty disturbing I mean, the sequence on the side of the road in California and Zodiac is.
I can't watch. I can't.
In broad daylight, just fucking kills me.
And the park, the park. That movie really messes with me. That's a really difficult movie for me to watch.
Yeah, well, and then that's when it's contextualized in real life, where it's like, wow, this could actually, what you said, Eric, where it's like, oh, this could happen, like.
Sure.
Or this did happen,
I will say, and as much as I will say that Scream is not scary, I will say the one thing they did a really, really good job with is the sound design of that knife and the sound design of the scissors in the Henry Winkler scene. The work they are doing sound wise on there is so sharp. Like it is a character of its own, is what that knife sounds like when it's even going through the air, much less going into someone's body. I'd say that's the one thing about it there's the one thing that slashers haven't done a great job of, other than, again, I'll say Nightmare on Elm Street, because you've got fucking 5 knives on a glove, and that's doing some terrible shit. But it made the knife scary. It made the idea that when they're like brandishing this thing out there, that there were real consequences with that knife, and it was going to do some damage, which I thought was great.
There's also that like thing where it's usually a male killer, right? And when it's a knife, it's usually like a phallic symbol, like some sort of like extension of their body for like sexual tension, like being released. And that's also kind of a creepy, weird, like something that makes your skin crawl kind of thing. At least that's something that I learned in my freshman film class.
Oh.
You were in that class with Timothy Oliphant and Jamie Kennedy?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually. Yes.
I mean, so are you saying then that Freddy has 5 penises?
He has a dick hand.
Freddy changes. Freddy got finger a lot. Yeah.
He's got dick hand. Sound like a commercial. Like, do you suffer from dick hand? Well, you need to take this medication that will get rid of your dick hand. I apologize, by the way. He only has four knives. One's just the thumb.
I wish I had a dick hand.
I actually didn't realize that.
Really?
I actually didn't realize.
He's only got the 4 knives, and then just that thumb though. That's the one that'll get you.
That's the reason.
Don't sleep on that thumb.
That's the reason why he's really pissed off.
The thumb's actually for other things.
Stop.
For pleasures.
I instantly regret don't sleep on that thumb. It works on too many levels, and it also doesn't work on so many levels. It's amazing.
I thumb my nose at you, sir.
That's just so he can do, and that's a visual that doesn't air in the podcast. Are there? I'm trying to think if I had anything else on here.
I'm not saying. I think that's where we wrap it up.
That might be where we finish. Yeah, I think so. It is funny. We did not talk about Candyman, which I will say is
Candyman's pretty good.
A pretty phenomenal slasher film.
Another sort of more on the where we're talking about kind of ghostly, spiritual.
But that hook, and then I know what you did that summer is like, oh, well, we can do a hook as well, but put him in a rain slicker because that's scary.
What was the commercial that you were?
It was the Gordon's Fisherman. That was just hawking fish sticks in your grocer's freezer, which is a really hard thing to say.
They got real lazy on that one. Let's cover his face in a shadow of the slicker.
And it also
put a slicker on him and then cover his face.
It featured
slinging fish sticks with a hook.
It did feature an actor that I did have to. Ben and I do disagree on this, and Ben is using the restroom very quickly, so I'll try to drag this out until he's back. But I will say one of the worst parts of I Know What You Did Last Summer is that I don't feel that Ryan Philippe is a qualified actor. Or at least at that time, I was not.
I actually thought he was in. When I saw it, I thought he was an NC. I thought he was an NC.
He's. Like since then, he went on to do MacGruber, and I quite enjoyed him in MacGruber, and I've heard him interviewed I've heard him interviewed, and he's really nice. He seems like a really, really nice guy. So I always feel bad, but he is in the late '90s. He was one of the worst actors I've. It was a tie for him between him and Josh Hartnett in terms of like who were the worst actors that were working constantly.
So that's why I hate The Faculty. It's because of Josh Hartnett.
And he's
else.
the
I can't get past it. That's why I can't watch Halloween H2O. Because of Josh Hartnett. It's horrible.
I agree with you. I will say the one Josh Hartnett movie I like.
Who speaks ill of John Hartnett?
So I will say The Faculty is so entertaining to me that it's so good that it can make Josh Hartnett entertaining.
He's tweaking, man. Let him tweak.
I just not since and then he didn't do anything good again until Oppenheimer, which was the vengeance, the justice. He is all over Oppenheimer.
He is.
Forgive me, I haven't seen it.
The first text message my brother sent to me after seeing Oppenheimer was, "You're not gonna like this."
He is Oppen on top of her and Oppen inside of her and Oppen inside of her.
Hartnett in Oppenheimer. It was so funny because my brother is texting me this, and then as I'm walking out of the theater with Ben is like, Josh Hartnett. I'm like, guys, you gotta stop. Just stop trying to make Josh Hartnett happen. He's been trying for years, but he's fine. He's just fine.
Is there a bigger amalgamation of douchebags than like what's in Pearl Harbor with?
Oh,
yeah. It's called Lucky Number 11.
Yeah, you're not
wrong.
But
that movie was actually entertaining.
You're not wrong about either of those. It is, the douchebaggery in you got to be working overtime in that time period to out douchebag Ben Affleck, but Hartnett does it, man. He shows up and he goes, no, you're not going to be the biggest douchebag in this movie. It's for me. Yeah. I'm going to do this.
Yeah, no, I'm almost positive that the director for Pearl Harbor, whoever it is, I don't know, probably
Michael Bay. Michael Bay.
Oh, Michael Bay did that movie?
Yeah, he thought that was going to be his Titanic.
I'm going to call him Chad, because if you employ those two assholes in one movie, I'm going to call you Chad.
I mean, is Michael Bay not the Chad that birthed all other Chads? He is Chad Prime. He is Chad Prime. Like, if you kill Michael Bay, all of the other Chads in the earth die. Like, he's the head. Like, he's the lead vampire.
Well, I'm friends with some Chads.
No, I mean, Ben and I have a friend named Chad, but I like Chads. Just not somebody who has Ben Affleck and Josh Hartnett in one movie.
I like Chads. Chads rock. I
got into that movie when I was watching.
This has to be the right Chad.
So Eric, something's going to happen with you that very rarely happens on the podcast. You have said something I enjoy so much that I am going to isolate it and make it a drop. The I love Chads is one of the greatest things I've just out of context I've ever heard. I'm like, and you were so earnest about it too. You're just like, I love Chads.
Let me tell you something. As much as I just shit on the name Chad, I love Chads.
Love Chads.
I love Chads. Chads rock.
We can have multiple takes of that. You can choose which one you want.
It just has to be the right Chad.
The first one was no notes. Perfect. Just absolutely ready to go out of the box.
Brilliant.
Eric, I want to thank you so much for joining us on The New Way this week. This was super, super fun. I cannot wait to listen to Beer Before Fear, where you can find wherever you listen to podcasts. I can see it here on Apple. I know you guys are also on Buzzsprout. We used to host The New Way on Buzzsprout back in the day, so I'm very familiar. Please listen to it. I am going to be checking out for sure. I do want to hear how much you go off on Child's Play. That sounds
the
super
Child's
fun.
Play episode is definitely the funniest.
I love a good rant, so I am super excited for that. But thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, listeners, for listening to us. We're gonna try to get to 20 episodes this year. It's gonna be real touch and go, but I think we can do it. We got about 4 more to go.
I'm here for it.
We do it. We'll figure it out. We're going to squeeze them in one way or another. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. We say it all together at the end. I know it's your first time, Eric, and Nick is going to get mad, so I can't count it down, but we say cheers at the end of the podcast. So thank you for listening, and
Cheers.